everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our wonderful podcast, Tuah, Nigeria.
We are your host, Isaac Wong and
Christopher Lau.
And today we are here to talk about colonialism in our favorite country of Nigeria.
Buckle up because it's going to be an exciting episode today. We even have a special guest and expert on the history of colonialism in Nigeria.
Hey guys, I'm Yoshi.
Boy! And he came all the way from the Museum of Lagos to talk about what happened during this era of colonialism in Nigeria.
I sure am excited, and I hope you guys are listening at home are as well. But before we get into this incredibly interesting topic, let's talk about our sponsorship to thank those who made this episode possible.
We'd like to give a huge thank to Jeff Bezos for his incredible generosity. His donation of $7 billion will make a huge difference in our podcast, allowing us to record much improved podcast content for you all. We truly appreciate his commitment to learning about the great country of Nigeria.
Let's all give a hand for Jeff Bezos.
Alright, now with that out of the way, we can begin diving into this fascinating part of history.
First, let's begin with a brief introduction of what Nigeria was like before being colonized.
I wonder what happened to the country that controlled Nigeria when the British took over.
That's actually what's interesting about Nigeria before colonization. It actually wasn't one single nation, but a bunch of different empires and kingdoms with incredibly different forms of government, life, and diverse cultures.
Wow, I actually didn't know that before. But how different were they from each other actually?
First, let's talk about the places that had single rulers, such as the House of States and the Oyo Empire. What's interesting is that although these two kingdoms both had a reigning monarch, the way they checked the power of the monarch varied incredibly differently. For example, the House of States were almost completely autocratic, with only a few councils that could assist the Sarki or the king. Meanwhile, in the Oyo Empire, they had a lot of checks for their monarch, balancing his power with councils such as the Oyo Messi chiefs and the Ogboni Parliament.
It's crazy that they had such different systems of power and kingdoms that they were so close to each other.
Yeah, it's insane. The differences in everyday life for commoners was pretty similar throughout these different kingdoms, however.
I've always wondered that it would have been to live there during this time. Like, what would I eat?
Usually, a lot of people living in this region would end up becoming Nigeria would grow, eat, and trade crops like yams, oil palms, plantains, and cassava beans. They would also hunt and fish to get their sources of meat.
I don't think I could live there then. I hate yams. Only my mother ate yams. Also, what would I even be able to do if I can't play Valorant?
A lot of people who lived here and worked a lot of jobs and did stuff that you would normally associate with pre-industrialization, such as blacksmithing, pottery, and making art and sculptures with terracotta and metal.
Bro, I can't even draw a stick figure.
Wow, thanks Chris for giving us a detailed picture of what it's like to live in the land of Nigeria during this pre-colonial time. Now let's listen to what Yoshi has to say about what happened during this colonial era.
Thanks, Isaac. Alright, now that we're done with Nigeria before colonization, as an expert of Nigeria, myself, I will talk about the era of imperialism in Nigeria.
Thanks, Yoshi. Now let's get into it. Which Europeans were involved in this imperialism to Nigeria?
Yes, let's start off with a basic question. The Europeans involved were mostly British, as they led imperialism. But as the British got deep into Nigeria, other countries in Europe joined them, such as Portuguese, Dutch, and French.
I thought the imperialism in Nigeria were all from the British, as it was mostly led by the British. What was included in their imperialism to Nigeria?
Many things happened to Nigeria, but mostly revolved around violence and gave the British many benefits while never benefiting Nigeria.
So, what briefly happened to Nigeria, Yoshi?
As violence took over Nigeria, the British forcefully took the lands and resources from Nigeria. With Nigeria losing their natural resources such as oil, palm kernels, cocoa, and tents, the British also built churches and schools on the land they took from Nigeria.
Wait, that sounds a bit sus. Why would they build churches and schools?
That's one of the important parts. The British never cared or valued about Nigeria's culture, language, and politics. They promoted their own culture of the West, leading them to build churches and schools in Nigeria.
Wow, it sounds like these could also significantly change the economy of Nigeria.
It sure did. The economy of Nigeria shifted as they exported more of their raw materials out to the world than they were trading slaves before imperialism. Imperialism took over the industries of Nigeria. Nigeria got further under British control. Nigeria was no longer able to be independent and became dependent on the British, especially on the imported goods the British got from Europe.
Wow, it sounds like colonization was really unfair for the Nigerian people.
That's exactly why they began advocating for their independence.
True.
I really enjoy talking to you. All my friends are like, oh. Like, why can't we talk about the political and economic state of Nigeria?
Yeah, but I wonder how many years Nigeria put up with being treated like this.
Boy, I'm glad you asked. Formal independence for Nigeria was granted on October 1st, 1960, when the British Union Jack flag was lowered and replaced with the Nigerian flag in Lagos.
Brother, the aura.
This is not tough, boy. But wait, how did this even happen?
That's a great question. This transition between colonialism and independence mainly came from the constitutional negotiations, political movement, and diplomatic agreements.
Good thing that there was very little bloodshed.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive accomplishment.
You know what else is massive? Why did the British end their colonial rule in Nigeria?
Why?
Well, mainly it's because of the boycotts, strikes, and media propaganda to pressure the British. Additionally, the British economy was very weak after World War II, forcing them to eventually give up control of many colonies.
That's crazy. So was this transition peaceful or violent?
It was mostly peaceful. Through negotiations and internal pressure, the British willingly gave power to the Nigerian leaders.
Wow, that's really great. So happy ending for Nigeria, right?
Well, not exactly. Even though Nigeria gained their independence in the end, Britain released them too fast and did not provide Nigeria with the proper framework to create a functional nation, leading to a lot of changes in power and overthrows of leaders for a couple decades after it was independent.
Wow, that sounds like it was pretty unstable, even after Nigeria got what they wanted.
You could probably argue that life was even worse in Nigeria for some time after independence than during colonization, considering how uncertain the political landscape was.
That's very unfortunate, but I'm sure Britain helped Nigeria industrialize, considering that they were the most developed nation at the time, right?
Actually, it was the opposite. The colonization slowed Nigeria's path to industrialization, as during the colonial period, Britain used Nigeria solely as a source of raw materials and somewhere where they could sell the manufactured goods. This ended up discouraging local manufacturing in Nigeria and made them dependent on outside resources for resources and goods.
It seems like Britain really ended up treating a lot of the countries that it colonized unfairly then.
Yes, that is especially true for a lot of African countries that were colonized, even those colonized by other countries in Europe. To this day, Nigeria and a lot of other countries in Africa that were previously colonized are not classified as developed nations and are still considered lower middle-income economies. They also continue to face issues with developing infrastructure with problems such as unreliable electricity. Also, remember earlier how I said that what is now Nigeria used to be a diverse landscape with many different cultures?
Oh yeah, I do.
Unfortunately, the colonization of Nigeria and implementation of more Western-centered education that favored English ended up oppressing other languages, driving many of the 520 languages that used to be spoken throughout this region into endangerment and extinction.
That's insane. Thanks, Chris, for helping inform us and the viewers of the true injustice that Britain imposed on the Nigerian people.
No problem.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode, but I really feel like I learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure the listeners did as well.
Already? Well, thank you guys so much for having me on the podcast.
No problem. It's been a long day
without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.